Awesome.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm so excited to get to share a good friend of mine, Jonathan Beck from WeGive, to talk about some of the amazing things that they've been building down in San Diego for the nonprofit space. Jonathan, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So what we like doing on in these conversations is really just doing a deep dive to who you are, why you care about the social
Mm,
sector, the kind of impact that you want to create, but also about your background. Can you tell us a little
mm.
bit about how you got started, post undergrad going into, you've been in the venture capital space, you've been in growth
Yeah,
consultant. Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah. I mean, I honestly was really fortunate. Kind of a product of my environment a little bit, right? I mean, most people get their first jobs out of college with a connection, um, and most of the connections I had in the Silicon Valley were all guys starting tech companies, basically, and I had friends starting tech companies. But the first company I joined is my buddy started a tech company called Debt Market, ended up getting acquired by the Intercontinental Exchange in like 9 months. And then a friend of a friend was starting a company called Market Riders, invented the robo-advisor category
Oh,
before
wow.
Betterment, before Wealthfront, before any of them. This is the first robo-advisor. And so did some product there, and that got acquired very quickly. So it really looked like I knew what I was doing when I had no idea. And around 2012, I joined Paystand, and by joined I mean I started Paystand with some buddies. That company's now valued at multiple $1 billion. Hopefully it'll IPO someday and I'll see some cash. But yeah, I started that with some friends, and that was originally a social commerce company, and then it was the first payments company to have Bitcoin as a payment rail. We also had bank login as a rail, which was very abnormal. The only other company at the time doing that was Dwolla, and they were only doing bank login. So it was an exciting time. I was the director of growth there, and we didn't really know what that meant at the time. But
What year was this again?
It was 2012. Yeah,
Early.
2012. We had servers in the office mining Bitcoin. I used to be a big Bitcoin believer. I'm totally anti-crypto now, but I was a crypto prophet. The the experience there basically led to a situation where I was one of the only guys in the Valley, maybe one of five, that had the title growth with some really legitimate accolades behind it.
Right.
And I'm not sure if I would say the growth and success of Paystand had maybe 0.01% to do with me, right? And it was just we hit the right product, right time, right market, and everyone else executed well, and I just kind of bumbled behind them, is what it felt like, at least. And because of that experience, and I think we were Fast Company or Inc., like top 5 fastest growing company in the Valley for like 3 years running.
3 years running.
I was just getting asked constantly, and I at that point the community, the people I knew at that point in time, I'm living on University Avenue in Palo Alto. All the people I know are like people raising Series A funds, basically. Right. And so like for their company. And so I was just getting asked by what felt like friends, hey, will you come do some growth consulting for us for maybe 6 months? We're just raising this A or raising this B or whatever. And so what ended up happening is just kind of like fell into that and ended up having this absolutely insane portfolio of companies that I'd helped. And so when I got sick of the Bay Area, I moved down to Los Angeles, and now I'm in San Diego. But that process was basically getting out of there and wanted to do something more meaningful. Wasn't sure what that was. Ended up landing on GiveList, which was basically a Market Riders, that robo-advisor, kind of the same thing, but for giving, where you could start a donor advised fund, find and discover causes and give to them easily, give via crypto. And a bunch of other companies popped up. Some are still around, shout out to like Charity Vest and stuff.
Right.
Google's One Today failed. Dandy failed. We failed, certainly. Well, we pivoted. So we pivoted, but we pivoted when we realized what the problem was and kind of what was happening in the space. And it was like a big aha moment. So we went all in on that and shifted our name to WeGive. And we've been doing that since 2020, maybe 2019.
Okay. What did you see that the problem was? We've got 100 questions for you over here, but
Yeah.
what were you struggling with up until 2018, 2019? You're like, this isn't going to click. And then what were you seeing then?
Yeah. Well, the big realization was, man, 50% to 60% of Americans give regularly. And this is a huge industry. It's like 430 billion that's given, around 60% of it's from individuals.
Right.
So it's like nearly $300 billion is given a year, and there's no marketplace for this. Like, we're going to kill it. And then beyond that, to have a donor advised fund or to give in any other way other than pulling a credit card out on a checkout was annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, okay, we're going to make a really great digital experience. It's going to be mobile first. There'll be a discovery piece. There'll be kind of this portfolio piece and this giving, and there'll be these feedback loops from those organizations communicating about the gifts and getting the people what they need. And what we found was, one, people don't go to purchase identity products from a marketplace, right? Primarily what people were doing when they're donating is they're buying meaning for themselves, right? Identity. And
donations is what you're saying. By donating, they're buying meaning, and they don't do that via marketplace. They do that with deeper relationships.
They want a direct relationship, right? And even if that means that organization's website, they don't want to be removed. There are some scenarios where people want to be removed, but it's, less than 1%, certainly. And this is what the numbers showed. And so, when people give, they want the connection. One. Two, what we realized is, other than, the unit economics is basically not working from like a software business standpoint, not being, that software not providing as much value as it was costing to build, was when we got an organization to post an impact story or an impact number. Hey, here's what your donation's doing. Like, we had this one church post a really raw photo with a little description of a bunch of groceries that they dropped off at some families that were kind of struggling in the community. And it, like, the engagement in the platform went ballistic.
Love it.
And right around that time, I was like, hey man, I really want to go B2B on this. I'm used to selling massive payment infrastructure to large B2B organizations. Our company was in the RFP to power Classy's payments in 2012, I think. They ended up using WePay, and then that got acquired by Chase, got shut down, and then I think they're on Stripe now. But like, we were going to run their payments back in the day, and I think it wasn't a great fix. They were focused on small nonprofits at the time. We were more focused on large B2B and not really payment facilitation. So I was like, well, I'm familiar with, I remember like what they were saying the market was like. I know the market pretty well myself now. And then I know payments certainly extremely well. So, nonprofit interchange is really, really low. Everyone's charging like 4 or 5%, when in reality, like, the effective processing rate here is like 1.3. And
we talk about that one for a bit.
Yeah, we can, and we won't. Let's stay away from that one. But like, I feel pretty confident in being able to take this portal communication thing we've built, layer on a really intelligent piece of payments, and then give that to nonprofits. Because really what we care about is helping. The whole goal was to basically help people that are giving have a much better experience with their giving, which when we learned, oh, that's really an identity purchase. How do we build a product that helps nonprofits give people identity digitally and in real life at scale? And so that's what our product does now, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna dive in a lot to that. Appreciate that explanation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you hit a few crazy hits early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, for
I mean,
sure.
I was working on ranches and things like that, like during undergrad. It's like, all right, how do we get out of the world
I
I'm
did
in?
work on a ranch during undergrad as well, actually.
That's good. That's good. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah.
grew up
Yeah.
working in East Texas ranches and in my in-laws, who became my in-laws and all that in Oklahoma. But it's just like, what a
That's hard
great
work.
opportunity to
Yeah.
just jump from. And where'd you go to school? You were in Pepperdine, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I pretty much didn't go to school. I pretty much just surfed the entire time.
So we can talk about some Malibu surfing. Never surfed there, but would love to. So great opportunity, great timing, obviously, and you've obviously
Hmm.
acknowledged that extensively.
Yes.
But you were talking about trends, what's the
Mhm.
gentleman's name? Andrew Chen,
Yeah.
Uber for
Yeah.
forever.
And yeah. The guy that got hired by Uber because of his
Yeah,
blog post about
right. I've
growth
got his
hacking,
book
basically.
right there. I think that's where it is, that blue one right there. Um, you know, that book just came out like 24 months ago, right? So
Yeah.
you're talking about things back in 2012, obviously network effects and all the good things that go along with that. But
Hmm.
you saw these trends, but you were making moves, riding some great waves,
Yeah.
technology waves at the same time. But you made a pivot to a very, very fragmented and very different industry. Like, you said you wanted to make a difference. What?
Hmm.
You were killing it up in the valley, moved to Los Angeles. Like, what's the deal there?
Yeah. I mean, there's honestly a lot to unpack there. And just some personal stuff on, kind of being lost in what felt like a really loveless
Mm,
meritocratic tech culture,
mhm.
um, mixed with just a desire to be around different types of people,
Mm.
get a little bit more intellectual diversity.
Okay.
Than because I mean Silicon Valley's it's a pocket. So yeah, I just wanted some more. Um, there's a lot there, honestly, to unpack personally from a professional standpoint. Um, I was either gonna I was probably gonna start another company and try to do it on my own. And I was going through my list of options. The one that seemed the most interesting was Give List, right, which is now WeGive, but that was because I thought it would be really meaningful. And I'm not, and it wasn't. I'm not really convinced that making software for nonprofits is that much more meaningful than making software for a service business,
Uh-huh.
at this point, now that I've been doing it for a while.
Tell us
But
why. Give insight.
yeah, what has been meaningful is being able to make software that and like recognize very real problems. And I think that's been helpful, not being in the industry, is being able to come from, we were using Optimizely, VWO, and Google Optimizers doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't even exist anymore. We were running A/B tests and being like, should this button be green? Should the number say 58, 64, or 55? And can we lift conversion rate by 30%? Right. And running all these tests like crazy in the early 2010s. And it's like, it seems like now that's just a conversation in nonprofit happening right now. Right. And so and I was told that nonprofit lags 10 years behind on average with like technology adoption and just general adoption. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like it might be. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the hot topic, like conversion rate optimization kind of been a hot topic now for what, 2 years,
Shockingly.
3 years?
So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
this is very important to talk about because there's an advantage to lagging, right?
Mm,
There's an advantage, and I think
big.
you and I probably trend the same way. We love early adoption, we love pushing the limits and all of that, but there's an advantage to sitting back and say, let's see how that pans out,
Yes.
right? Because I don't love the perspective or I don't love the lifestyle, but I can appreciate the perspective of sitting back and saying, okay, let's see what's going on over here. What kind of
Mhm.
leaps and bounds do I get to just leapfrog?
Mm,
There's not a more innovative culture in the world than what's going on in, the San Francisco, the Bay Area.
right.
So when the nonprofit industry does lag a little bit behind, that's okay. as long as they're able to pounce on the next thing and ride a completely different wave than what
Yeah.
your peers may be doing. And that's something I think we can talk a lot about with WeGive. You want to shine a little bit of light there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, what we've seen is that I mean, it's certainly good to be risk averse, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think we're coming to a point now where consumer experiences, like expectations of consumer experiences, are so high
Right.
that it's actually really risky not to uh, not to invest in upgrading,
Right.
right? Into innovating some of your legacy traditional powered experiences. I mean, you go to some of the top organizations, their digital experiences for giving are shockingly bad
Yeah,
compared to like a small brick and mortar business on Shopify, right?
exactly. Just say that one more time so everyone really lets that sink in.
Yeah,
So an organization, let's say they're doing $500 million a year,
yeah, that's
right?
a great example. I can name a
Yeah.
couple, and I won't.
We're
Yeah,
familiar with them. They're
yeah,
raising $500 million a year, and their giving experience lags so far behind a startup,
it's terrible.
non-venture backed startup. Somebody started this in an afternoon on Shopify.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I can go and buy a pair of shoes from some website that has 2 employees at it
Right.
and have the most incredible experience. I get a one-click checkout, it recognizes me. I land on instead of giving, everything's beautiful, first of
Mhm.
all,
Mhm.
everything matches their brand. I don't go somewhere else. Then I land on my profile on that website, shows me my product that I purchased, shows me where it is on a little map. You know, it's coming to me right now. And like expectations, a little timeline, a little box where I can ask questions. I can upload there's a community right there of people that use that product, that use those shoes. I can look at those videos. You know,
Exactly.
there's all these ways to connect more, and they're just selling me shoes. That's not an identity product. Well, maybe that's the wrong choice, but they are pretty close to an identity product, shoes. But nothing like donating $1,000 to a organization you care about. You're buying meaning in that scenario, right? And that's just not being communicated to most people. If you go to these big sites, we're doing $500 million that have a lot of employees, you would think that when I go to give, I'm not filling out the same generic form that everyone else is, as if I'm a new donor. I'm filling out my payment info for you again. And then after I'm done with that, you just go, hey, thanks, back to the homepage with you.
Right. Right.
And that's my experience,
Mhm.
buying meaning from you. And then best case scenario, and this not even like best case scenario, I get added to a MailChimp newsletter email list that's got a 30% open rate and a 1% click-through rate. And I get pounded with direct mail for the rest of my life. That's just like the same fundraising pamphlet with different design on it. It's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people are bummed on it. You know, and this is the number one reason people stop giving is they don't feel they were communicated with about their gift. The number one reason people do give is to feel like they're making a difference, right? To feel good feel moved. So
Totally.
communication, right?
It's absolutely a
And
communication
yeah, so
conversation.
you know that well with obviously what you guys do. So
The donors want to make a social impact. Right? That's what they want to do. They want to make a difference. They can't do it on their own unless they're going to go start a nonprofit or go start an impact investing fund.
which they
They
shouldn't.
need your help, right? Which they shouldn't.
Yeah.
They need nonprofits' help in building an impact. So it absolutely
Mm.
serves the nonprofit well to say, we're going to help you. We're going to play the guide, as we say in the story brand world. We're going to play the guide of helping you create the impact that you want to create,
Mm-hmm.
right? Through these 1, 2, 3, 5 different programs, 10 different programs that you serve. But wow, it's such an opportunity to have an identity-based giving program, like you're saying, treat people with respect, treat
Mm-hmm.
people as impact investors, treat them like the donors that they are, but who they aspire to become,
Mm-hmm.
but then regularly update them. And this is the thing that matters so much. should talk about email open rates, right? We had a client, they were just ringing the death drum of all the terrible things that were going on in the world.
Yeah,
And that advice is so prevalent, like, oh, remind people of the terror that's going on,
right.
because it works for a very small amount of time, right? That works in
Mhm.
election cycles, which we are in right now, right?
Yeah,
It gets everyone's attention.
yeah.
It works in disasters, but it doesn't work for long-term givers, right? To create a sustained impact, raise a lot of money over time. You want to constantly update. This is the good work that we are doing with your money. And
Mhm.
these are the stories of people's lives that are being transformed because of you.
Yes,
That's the win. You made this happen.
that's the win. And that's what we're seeing, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's what we see as well in tech. What we're talking about is actual product delivery, right? And the KPI on products retention. The product of a nonprofit is to communicate personalized, meaningful communication around you are making a difference. That's the product delivery. That's not delivered via UPS, it's delivered via communication.
Right?
Hey, thanks for donating. Here's a story about something that you did.
Yes.
That makes people retain. That's the product that they're buying, right? And on the same side with tech, the product people buying, when they purchase, they landed it actually. And then they start using it. And the KPI, what gets measured, gets managed, is retention.
Yep.
Getting into that's activation. And then top of funnels acquisition, right? For some reason right now, nonprofit, everyone's focused on acquisition, which I don't understand why. I mean, 90% of everyone's givers are returning donors.
So let's camp there for a moment, because
Please.
does donor acquisition matter? Yes, it matters. Acquiring new donors is important.
Yes.
So
Yes.
at the same time, it costs 5 times as much to acquire a new donor as
Yeah.
it does to retain them. And 90% of all giving comes from returning donors or recurring donors.
Yes.
So let's talk about we'll do the whole scope on WeGive. But the
Yeah.
main thesis for what you learned in the tech space, and you were in the tech space 15 years, something like that, before you started.
10. Yeah.
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 Through the craziest time in the craziest stretch in tech history in the United
Pretty
States.
much. Yeah. Maybe
Wild,
not, but close. One of them.
crazy
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so you saw these trends and you said, okay, I'm pointing over here to the trends.
Yeah.
This over here, like A/B testing, yeah, that matters. But then the whole tech space said, no, retention matters. What's your churn? My gosh, we got
Yes.
to decrease churn. We
They
can't
did.
afford to have, losing new customers. In the nonprofit space, we can't afford to lose donors,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
You
A/B testing
know,
it has its place. Let's talk about keeping people for forever. Let's talk about donor lifetime value. How do we increase donor lifetime value
yeah.
rather than just, conversion rates, which still matter, but that just doesn't.
Mhm.
You had a stat that you said earlier
Yeah.
before we recorded about what does it look like what does a nonprofit's total revenue look like if we increase recurring giving?
Yeah. I mean, that I did, right? I mean, I believe it's and recurring giving is not just recurring give, just returning donors retention, revenue retention
Right.
is the biggest, it's the lowest hanging fruit and it's
Yes.
the biggest fruit, both. Right? There's no better fruit above it. And it's the lowest, it's right in front of everyone. It's because it's a huge problem, right? I think the average retention rate, like max, is like 45%. And on the low end, it's like 20, depending on the type of organization you are. When we were doing growth consulting, if you had a retention rate lower than 95%, we would literally not do top of funnel.
Right.
Because
So
the margins were so tight too.
let's put that in different language, right? Because
Yes.
what you're saying makes perfect sense in the tech space. That
Thank
means
you. I need
if
help
you
with
were
that.
losing 5% of your donors on, let's just say, monthly, quarterly, annual basis,
Yeah.
you would say, stop what we're doing from a marketing standpoint. We've got to double down on who we already have as donors, who we already have. We're putting
Mhm.
big time out on marketing. We are focusing
Yes.
exclusively on our recurring givers, on our supporters. Why are we losing 5%, not 45%, 5%? We've got to double down and solve this problem, because if we don't, we're just going to be burning money as we try to acquire. I know that that term sounds a little rude when we're talking about donors, but we're just
No,
talking
it's all
about the
right.
process of meeting and activating new donors.
Yeah, it's basically if 5%, just 5%, and I'll use nonprofit terms as if I'm talking about if we're a tech company, because most tech companies are MRR, ARR focused, annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue.
Right.
And I think more nonprofits should be as well, because they're selling basically an identity subscription ultimately. But regardless, if more than 5% of your recurring supporters or donors in this scenario, right? Let's go monthly. If more than 5% of our monthly recurring supporters churn, then we are in a horrible situation.
Yes.
And we literally can't afford to run a Facebook campaign for $1 million, which is what these guys are doing, right? Is massive, massive, massive campaigns. The average for a ministry is like, I think annual retentions, you should expect to lose 60 to 70% based on the average numbers in CRMs, not from just giving tools, right? Like when we go to do it, you've seen them, when you go into someone's data platform, there's been a couple, for even a large organization or small one, here's the people that donated this last year. And then here's the database of people that have ever donated that aren't donating for some reason. Right. And the number one reason people don't donate is because they weren't communicated about how it made a difference. And so the organizations need to be focusing on retention, right? Yep. It's a 10x growth lever is what it is. And Brady Josephson has an interesting blog post on this where he actually breaks the math down, but he's advocating where he goes, basically a 1% increase, 1%, which might be one meaningful email, which we found actually a personalized thank you after a donation is a 90% lift. We'll get into more stats. I don't want to get stuck there. The point is a 1% increase in retention is a 10% increase in actual revenue for the organization. A 5% increase in retention can represent a 50% increase in revenue for the organization because of lifetime values, right? And so we built a product to do that entirely, right? It was shocking to me that it seems like the whole front office, marketing, communications, donor relations, stewardship, development, advancement, whatever, the whole front of office for a nonprofit, small or large, their primary job is to communicate to people in a meaningful way about the difference they're making. So it is to deliver the product. Right. And the tools that they're using don't let them really do that. Right. And that was the problem I was seeing when you were asking earlier about kind of what problems, and it does sort of lead into sort of what we do, which we can cover, but largely these organizations are trying to pull segmented people out of their CRM, try to figure out what they did digitally, load it into some kind of system where they can send them a message. And right now, it's so difficult to do that most organizations have settled for like a 20% open rate newsletter that goes to everybody. And maybe because they paid extra on MailChimp, they have some dynamic content where they show a certain blog post if someone's over a certain value in lifetime. Woohoo! It's just really challenging for these guys to do anything meaningful communication that's personalized at scale. So we built a platform to fully do that, right? And a lot of times people will come to us wanting checkouts because they go, hey, what we have now, it's not good enough. We need to be able to really A/B test. Really big organizations and small organizations, they're all thinking this right now. We got to optimize our checkout. We have to optimize our checkout. because man, our conversion rates, these conversion rates could increase. And if we get some increased conversion rates, it's going to be really good for us revenue wise. And we go, okay, sure. But maybe changing the button color or the ask amount and focusing on increasing, getting a 20 or 30% increase on what is actually a 10% group of your givers, which is your existing donors or new donors, isn't going to be as valuable as giving your existing donors, people that already support you, a much better personalized experience.
Totally.
Right. So that when John comes on and lands on the checkout, instead of having $60 suggested to him instead of 30 because of his, location and his device, we actually can say, hey, John, that's John. We know that device ID actually. And we have that device with a session cookie that belongs to this contact record. Let's go look at the contact record real quick. He's done this, he's done this, he's done this, he's done this. Oh my goodness. You know what we don't have? We don't have an answer from him on what radio station he listens to us on. Let's go back real quick, mid-checkout, and say, hey, John, welcome back. We've got all your information. No need to fill anything out again. We appreciate that you're here. We've got some new impact stories for you on your profile. And if you could just real quick, if you don't mind, let us know what radio station you listen to us on. Here's the 3 options that are in your location based on your IP address. And then all of a sudden, John's like, oh my gosh, feeling so much station, right? Feeling so great to feel recognized versus walking into the house and just being treated like a stranger, like everyone else, and being thrown a different number every time to give. I'm coming in and I'm being treated like an old friend. Oh, Jonathan, welcome back. Please come sit down we got you a chair right over here. Make yourself at home. I remember you like tea. Can I get you a glass? That's a much better experience than just walking in and being carted to a room with everyone, which is what we're doing digitally right now to all of our VIPs and our new people. And so what we do is our checkouts leverage your actual CRM data and let you actually do dynamic things because we recognize who people are. Right. When that happens, people land on profiles that aren't just tables of transactions. No one cares. That's not meaningful communication. What's meaningful is landing on a profile and seeing an impact report for me, not for the organization, an impact story, landing on there, seeing a picture of groceries that we delivered. I might be drinking a coffee in the morning or on the John, and I could be crying, going, oh my gosh, I am so touched. I'm feeling so moved. The number one reason I give, feeling moved, because of the number one reason I don't give, communication I'm receiving about how much of a difference I'm making. That's exactly why I give to this organization, so that I can hear that someone got groceries, that needed groceries.
Exactly.
How grateful am I to have groceries, right? And all of a sudden, I'm having a raw heart moment where I'm feeling overwhelmed by how much I love supporting this nonprofit because they clicked a couple buttons in WeGive. And to do that right now with these other systems is basically you need to spend millions of dollars piecing together all these different tools, and then IT and digital experience has to basically be treated like everyone's agency,
right,
to do all their work to try to pull all the pieces together. Oh, you need a trigger for someone that's given with over $1,000 in the CRM, and then we're going to add them to this and cookie them and try to push them over here. It's like, oh gosh, I got a lot to do also for these other departments. And then even when you're in those tools, those variables don't already exist. There's no pre-made variable in MailChimp that goes, when donation is monthly amount is over 500 and it's one of these 3 designations, let's send them into this campaign. And if their contact record has an account associated with it that has a lot of value, let's also go ahead and post an impact story to their platform.
You're telling me that MailChimp can't do that?
Right.
I'm shocked.
I mean, MailChimp's an unbelievable tool. I'm just like, unbelievable piece of software, but it's not made for a nonprofit. and it takes a lot of work to piece it together. So that's kind of what we do. Our portals are meaningful experiences where you can have conversations and communications with the organization, with other supporters. You can view impact numbers, impact stories, all impact focused. And what are you doing? What's your identity at this organization? What's the history, history of offline transactions, not just the digital transactions that have gone through X, Y, and Z checkout tool. And then we've got a checkout product that looks like you, not like us. And on that checkout, you can basically give people actually dynamic, personalized experiences by recognizing who they are in your database and then treating them thus, versus what's to date the bar is what kind of, is this an Apple or a Windows? Is it an IP address with an average median income that's high or low? Let's go ahead and choose one of the pre-made ask amounts and crank it up or crank it down.
Exactly.
And maybe we can increase conversion here. When they do click, then we'll go and ask them for their name again, their email again, their address again, their payment info again. Ask them to cover the fee before they've even chosen their payment method, because who knows? And then once they've done given, say, thanks a lot, and maybe ask them for something else again. And so let's keep our communications, instead of asking, giving them product, giving them experience, and giving them meaning, which is basically impact, right? Totally. It's kind of the way everyone seems to bucket it. But I think it touches all of those. I think that is front of office. And so, we've got a marketing omni-channel, marketing automation omni-channel platform, portal, and then checkouts. And so, and they all speak to each other, and they all sit on top of your data model. We don't go one way. We sit on top of your CRM or on top of your database. We suck up all of your data, and then we give you 600 pre-made variables for communication. We let you segment your CRM data in our marketing automation. You want to send a text to everyone that X, Y, and Z, or a printed impact story, or an email, or a platform message, and enter into a bi-directional conversation. You can do that. You want to power a portal experience where people that have done this get this impact story, or don't get this, get these kind of impact updates. And those updates don't have to be really produced. In fact, the non-produced ones perform the best. Just a simple video. Hey guys, thank you so much. We just got the shipments in of all the mosquito nets. Can't wait to deliver these. Right. Those are the ones that smash.
Yeah, can we just say that one more time? Because
yes,
this is the world that we live in social impact.
That's right.
Measure and market impact.
Yes.
I love videographers. I love video teams. I love the whole thing. It matters. But for a nonprofit to triple down on like Hollywood level production quality, just give me that grimy raw footage of what you're doing in Bangladesh, and I'm thrilled. Yeah. Like, good to go. Like, that people need to know the realities, and it's not airbrushed in 4K, right? Like, we've got to get into.
Yeah. It's not 2005. It's just the reality is that everyone's spending all day long looking at like real-time content.
Right.
And it's not produced.
Right.
And everyone has the most insane thing that's ever been created in their pocket. And it's basically made to create those videos practically at this point.
Right.
There's been billions of dollars of R&D research into creating something that you can make a quick raw video on. And everyone's used to it, and everyone's already doing it in their life anyway.
Exactly.
On other platforms. So just, that's what performs the best. These high produced ones, like, man, this is like a great overview of what this organization or nonprofit or ministry does. It's a great overview, a 3-minute overview, but that's not personalized communication to me about what's happening, right? The update type thing is like the full-on portrait mode selfie video or photo or something that's happening with maybe no text description or just a little bit. And it's those actually, I'm not saying those are good enough. I'm saying those actually perform better. They do a 30-second amount of effort right from someone in the field, unedited, performs better than the $40,000 3-minute video with drone flyover
Exactly.
and B-roll. Like,
do what he said for all the overview videos. I mean, again, I love video
yeah,
teams. My best friends in the world is a killer videographer. We send him clients
man,
all the time. Love those guys.
yeah,
But for just the raw, the real, like I cut my teeth in the international development space and disaster relief. Like
yeah.
that was the world I'm in.
Wow. So
So
you
you know
know,
what the world's like. You're like, okay,
yeah,
yeah, wait, hold on a second. That's not what that part of the world looks like. Who's this, model that you had show up that's doing this video? No, just show me what it is. Tell the
yeah,
truth. Convey the impact. Otherwise, we're putting lipstick on a, I don't want to use that analogy. Lips on a pig's not nice, but it's just like we're trying to gussy up a
yeah,
situation that does not help in conveying the impact that your organization creates.
yeah. And so, why aren't those shared more easily? Well, probably because there's no channel of distribution that's standard. What you can, you can do a video and share it on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, whatever your social channel is, but that social channel is there for a very specific reason.
Right.
And people open that app for a very specific reason. And guess what? That reason is not looking at your organization.
Right.
It's not. It's
right.
not. Right.
It's not
And the motivations aren't great, actually, when you actually like research the motivation for why people open those. That's actually pretty unhealthy. But even if it was healthy, the motivations have nothing to do with getting an impact report from their nonprofit that they support.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So you've said several things that are just enormous takeaways here. You said number one, the biggest fruit and the lowest hanging fruit, which
Yeah.
has ever done any strategy, you're looking for the big low hanging fruits. Just save you a few years at Harvard Business School. Yeah. That's all you're trying to do. That's the goal.
Yeah.
If that is on if that's the retention strategy, if that's what the golden strategy is, to focus on retention. You've built a platform, you being, Jonathan at WeGive, you've built a platform that really throttles down sharing impact stories, sharing stories of transformation, updating your donors from an omni-channel, text, email, phone, all sorts of different channels to be able to do that. That's the big thing. At the same time, it's important to recognize you've done the top of funnel too, right? So you've built these checkout models, like your modules, excuse me. You've taken care of both sides of that equation, right? With what you built at WeGive. And what I really want people to hear is that you were and you said this, you were very fortunate to be building companies in San Francisco while all of this was being developed and while billions and billions of venture capital dollars were being spent to figure out what works. Right?
Yeah.
These VCs, they're smart people. Like they don't just spend money for fun. They're trying to get some kind of huge upside on that. And so when they find out what works, do it, right? It's the whole thing of like, top of funnel is great, but if your churn rate is over 5%, stop all of your marketing efforts and fix the problem first. Fix this, this churn problem. We're losing too many reoccurring or recurring donors because we haven't solved it's the product delivery, it's services, it's the, people are trying to buy meaning at scale. And that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah. That's a really interesting way to put that.
You know what I mean? Like, just expand on that if you don't mind.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think curbing retention is important, but really what you're after is scalable, predictable revenue for your organization so that you can keep doing the things that you're trying to do.
So now you're preaching. You're preaching over here, John. Hold on. Say that one more time. Scalable, predictable revenue is what you're trying to build for your organization. Why? Because nonprofits depend on donors. We've got to build that machine first as we scale the impact, right? Because we're trying to change the world in our specific realm. But we need other people's money to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just this heartless mathematical equation. Like, there's a whole layer of morality here on stewardship.
Yes.
If you're going to be a good steward of people's money, then you need to deliver the product that they're coming to purchase. How disappointing for someone to put their faith in you and you take millions of dollars from a group of 100,000 people and not deliver them a product
Right.
other than actually 4 newsletter emails over the year and 2 direct mail letters that get not even open, but 20% are going to open and donate. So we're going to keep sending it.
Right.
What
Right.
a disappointment.
Right.
Like, let's upgrade that, right? All I'm looking for is a personalized thank you, a personalized and meaningful update on my donation.
Right.
Hey, Jonathan, quick text. Thank you so much for giving. Here's a link to your impact profile, or we'll be updating you on your stuff. Hey, we just planted that well that you purchased, or we're on phase 1. Come check out the 30-second raw video of it. You know,
Right.
that's what I want. I'm wanting, I am in a cubicle 10 hours a day. Help me have some meaning. Help
Yeah.
me feel like I'm out in the field making a difference. That's
Right.
what I need as a human in America right now. Help me feel some meaning.
Right.
And that's really what it is. And it just so happens that when you do that, you have basically a 2x on revenue growth lever to pull. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, of the organizations that are coming into our platform that are like small local to big international, we are seeing anywhere from 30 to 60% increases in recurring giving, while one-time giving and new donors remains relatively flat or just like on organization growth levels, like 5 to 6%. We're seeing 30, 40, 50, 60% recurring giving growth across organizations.
It's huge.
And then gross giving, we're seeing anywhere from 50 to 100+% on the small, on some of these other guys that are just like if the organizations that are doing $1 million and under, they're seeing growth just go kaboom. And then the organizations that are large, they're still seeing growth basically completely hockey stick up and to the right, because all of a sudden everyone's way more connected with what's happening. And I don't know why we're not recognizing that that's what denominates the whole system, right? And so that's probably the wrap up I would give, right?
Yeah. I think it's so well put. And I've got this picture in my mind of, I was at a client event. So it's a great nonprofit, pretty sizable organization. And they probably have 40-ish people in their development team alone, right? And so what they were doing, they had their bigwig donor was showing up, and it was like the president of the United States was showing up, to their event. The
Yeah.
red carpets were rolled out, champagne was popping, and being facetious, but I think everyone can see where I'm going here. What's changed is that donors' expectations, regular old donors like me, all the way up to the individual I'm talking about, our expectation is that we're going to get Amazon level, Shopify level, extreme personalization level to the same degree that major donor was getting at this organization. But in order to make that meaningful connection happen in the world that we live in today, outside of WeGive, we have to piecemeal all of these, all these different databases together, and we have to have tech teams that understand what that means and understand the mechanics and the intentionality behind all this, and then people to execute and fix problems all the time.
And even then, yeah.
So go for it.
No, I was saying, and even then, it's challenging.
It's work.
To even get that to work. Yeah, what you're saying. But yeah, continue.
Totally. So like, just imagine being able to roll the red carpet out for everybody, right? And that's the goal here, is we want to roll out the red carpet. And we launched a new campaign for a client a couple of weeks ago, immediately got a huge spike in giving just from an email campaign. And being able to roll that out, and we're seeing, some of those people hadn't given in 15 years.
Yeah.
Think about that. They haven't given to the organization in 15 years, and a couple hundred, couple thousand, $10,000 rolls in from specific individuals. So what's the response? It's
and they were probably on other email campaigns too, right? It's not that they weren't emailed for 15 years. It's that they were finally emailed something meaningful because you helped them put it together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so having a platform that rolls up all of this information with campaigns that are designed to increase recurring giving, to increase meaning and connection at scale, because you can't, if you have 10,000 funders, you cannot have enough development officers to have one-to-one relationships with those funders.
No.
It's not possible. I mean, Dunbar's rule does not let us go beyond 160 relationships. It's true. So how do
Mm.
we create meaning at scale? With a lot of data points, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of data points and a lot of meaningful interactions that are not high produced, that are not hard to do from a logistical standpoint from the nonprofit. It's because technology has gotten so much better, but expectations have risen so much. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. I think that that's really fair. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a really great way to say it. And I love your analogy on the red carpet and the VIP experience, right? Um, and I, it's what people are wanting
Mhm.
to feel,
Mhm.
and not necessarily that they're some important person,
Right.
but that at least they're recognized.
Yeah. And that they matter.
At least, right?
Yeah.
That they're not being treated like a credit card or an ATM machine.
Right.
The second I get stuck in your marketing net, I'm treated like an ATM machine, versus the second I partner with you to make a difference in the world, I am treated like a valued member of your organization. Those are the two differences we're talking about. We're not talking about what kind of form UI looks better on top of a processor. We're talking about why are we talking about conversion rate to begin with?
Mhm.
What we're after is delivering our product to our constituents well, which is meaning, which is communication, digital experiences. So
Mhm.
let's figure out how to, the only way to that's what software and technology is: digital experience and asynchronous and synchronous communications, data, information passing. And that's what it is. So it's a perfect space for it, really.
It's a great,
But yeah.
and you've put together, obviously we're talking about onboarding that
Mhm.
is seamless because you're not having to get rid of old softwares, worry about
Mhm.
contracts, all that nonsense. Like you said, y'all built this with the intentionality of like, listen, we want to be on top of it. And by on top of it, just means
Mhm.
the information rises up to WeGive,
Correct.
right? We don't have to replace things or get rid of things and all that,
Mhm.
frustration that I know a lot of nonprofits are frustrated with. But you want to
Totally.
talk about that?
Yeah, we found that, it varies between organization size, but we certainly found like the biggest barrier for us to actually do what we want to do, which is move quickly and work with real organizations, is their fear
Mhm.
of risk and of doing something new and moving off systems. And we basically put together, I think, a pretty compelling onboarding implementation process where we come in and we basically give the option where if you want, we will complete, if you will commit to basically going live 90, 120 days from now, or you set a go live date and commit to it, we'll just handle the implementation.
You do
And we
all.
won't, yeah, well, we handle it, right? I mean, you answer some questions, but for the most part, like, we understand the nuances of your data model. We set up on top of your CRM. We set up a bi-directional sync. No other really giving platform or communication platform has a bi-directional sync with the integration with the CRM, and that's so important for that, to have that data. And or you can't really do anything interesting.
Blind without it. I mean, truly blind without it.
It's really important. Exactly. I mean, I'm sure what you do is largely based on the data that they have. Yeah. And so we also found that some large organizations will have legacy processors that they need to bring over. So we'll let you bring your own processor over and hook that up on the back end. We also will underwrite organizations with, on average, about 4 or 5 processors at once. Give them round robin ability and risk diversification. We do what's called a token bay on the front end. So all of their payment information is stored in a PCI compliant vault for them. That's pretty big,
It's
because
huge.
what happens, yeah, a lot of people don't know what any of that means. It sounds like,
Right.
A completely different language.
Right.
But what that means is that when you go to leave us or you graduate from us or something happens, you have your data, and your data is the actual numbers of the payment data tokenized in a completely compliant vault that you can go hook any processor you want up to. And you can just take that and leave, versus, hey, we're gonna leave you guys, and we're going to go use this other form technology or whatever. And then we go, well, good luck taking those recurring plans over. They're stuck with us, so we're just going to turn them off. Right. And so
I mean, that
it's just
happens
really
all the
bad.
time, right? That
It
happens
does
all,
happen all the time.
like they're
Constantly.
stuck. They've got their teeth so sunk into your backside that you can't get out. And it's
And
like,
they crank
well,
up
I
the
guess
SaaS fees.
exactly
Yeah.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, like, we're dealing with this right now with the client. Like they're making a
Mm.
transfer. And it's like, are we ever going to get past this stage? Or are we just going to keep having fun, with this
Yeah.
token?
It's brutal. So, we'll do the token migration from your existing platform for free. I'm in backgrounds and payments, and we're not just sitting on top of Stripe. So I actually know how to do token transfers, right? Right. I'm like CC'd with like some like general counsels of some decently large fintech companies right now, where I'm going, hey, this is my client's IP. You're going to send this to me. Here's a PGP key. Here's a et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And we get the data, right? And so we do the migration for the organization. We bring that over. If they want to bring over their own processor because they have a legacy relationship, we hook that up. We also give people basically interchange rates, like wholesale bundled rates that are really good, right? And then kind of just do volume based on everything. So it seems what works for everyone. And so you can kind of roll into those parts of the product at your own pace, right?
Let's just
But
translate that.
everything's
What
set
we're
up.
saying is no upfront
Mhm.
cost. We're talking about,
Correct.
you pay for what you use, kind of a thing. It's all transaction based, not, you know, there's some price tags associated with tech like this. And you're
Yeah.
eliminating a lot of those concerns.
Yeah. What it seems like is that's what works for everyone is like the reality is the average processing rate people are paying with their existing checkouts is usually between like 4 and 5%, right? Including like the platform fees, and then usually it's Stripe or something like that. Average donation rates usually 1 to 200. So you add 30 cents on, do a 2%, 1% platform fee somewhere in there. Sometimes it's 3% platform fee, and then it's like 2.2 to 2.9 on card, 1% on ACH. It's a lot. And you take, if you do $10 million, we'll multiply 5% on that. That's a lot.
Big number.
You're paying a lot. A lot of people making money on you
Yes.
for just a form that's got a UI that you like. So we try to make it in a way where you can use our forms, you can use our portal, you can use emails, texts, bi-directional chat, whatever you want to do, you can use what you want. Handwritten letters is a channel we have, printed mail, whatever you want to use, you can use it, and you pay for what you use in a very fair way, right? It's basically, cost passing essentially on all of those. So yeah, that's the process, because we'll do the integration, we'll get you live with your standard checkout on your site, and then as you want to roll it into other campaigns, you want to run events on it, you want to do P2P fundraisers, pledge campaigns, premium gifts, e-store, or you want to send texts, you want to send emails, whatever you want to do, you can roll into those easily. And because we have that bi-directional sync with your CRM, any other systems that are living on your CRM still live and still exist just fine. So everyone's like, well, do you integrate with MailChimp? Like, why would I need to integrate with MailChimp when I'm sending all the data that you're already getting from your CRM right now into your CRM, and I'm bi-directionally synced with it?
Right.
And people are like, oh, right. Yeah. So we can still use MailChimp. Yes. And then 2 months later, they're not using MailChimp and they're using us.
Truly,
Right.
like
So,
ditching MailChimp to use you as their email provider.
yeah, not just, we're seeing organizations ditch Salesforce Marketing Cloud Pardot to use us.
Okay. So that's
MailChimp.
really important to talk about here, because, whenever you're making a big tech switch, you're like, okay, I'm already paying X thousand per month or per year for the tech, right? I'm getting hosted.
Yeah.
I know you're saying it's not going to cost anything to get started. You're going to do the onboarding for me, which that's a godsend. But then it's sort of a pay as you go, pay what you use kind of idea. But then there's the opportunity to stop paying for some other platforms, right? So you're talking about ditching Marketing Cloud for Salesforce. Not cheap. Ditching Pardot, ditching MailChimp. What else are we talking about here?
SMS platforms. There's like quite a handful of SMS platforms that we take over. We probably have the best SMS platform for nonprofits, I would think, because of that bi-directional sync, and because people are living. We have all the digital data you want. right? So all the flags or triggers that you would want to send any kind of transactional message, we're running those and we have them predefined. And then all the data in your CRM, we're using all of that to power the portal. So we have all of it, right?
Yeah. So you just
So
have
it's just a really
the
abnormal
source of truth,
situation.
right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's all rising up. So instead of replacing all of your other databases and other texts, like, listen, we're just going to take all that good stuff up here.
yeah,
It can be the new source of truth, but you can
totally.
also execute a lot of these different campaigns based on what you built.
Way more easily, way more easily. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have a developer go and create a trigger, add a JavaScript tag to some form for a certain amount of a transaction coming from some UTM campaign that goes here and does this with a MySQL insert and part out. Like, it's craziness what people are doing right now. And I'm seeing it. And I'm seeing like really high level organizations doing this craziness.
Right.
And so it's pretty remarkable. Yeah, so you can do that. The one thing we try not to replace, and some organizations will ask or try, is CRM. We do not want to replace CRM. That's what I would consider back of office software, right? So go buy your best in class back of office software. Accounting is accounting, right? You don't need a nonprofit specific accounting platform. Go use Sage and Tax. Go use QuickBooks. Why would you use a nonprofit specific? Why would you use a nonprofit specific CRM? Sometimes what I think too, but there are a lot of custom objects that do make sense. So I won't say that. But back of office softwares, keep using those just fine. For front of office, that is a very nonprofit specific thing, right? And it's basically powering the commerce of giving.
Right.
Powering giving commerce. What is giving commerce? What's powering it look like? And I think it's what we've built, honestly, but we'll see.
Well, with some of the data that you have from your existing clients, it's working, right? You're seeing
It
huge
is working.
in recurring giving, huge boost, and total giving. By that, it's because you spend a lot of time, in the space, right? Both on like the
I believe
first
so.
principles tech side, then obviously you're very familiar with the nonprofit industry, the ministries that you've been working with and serving alongside. It's a huge deal. And so WeGive.com is the place to go to check out WeGive. I mean, I'm sure you've got demos available, easy ways for
Yeah,
people to get involved. Is that what you would recommend people doing?
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it sounds interesting, yeah, you want to see a demo, feel free.
Yeah.
There's view demo and request demo all over our site. So, just click on any button. I'm sure you'll land on some kind of demo form. But that's what I would suggest if it does sound interesting. And we have sandboxes as well that you can kind of set up and play with, although that significantly limits you on what you can do with testing engagement.
Of course.
You can imagine how having like hot live handwritten notes for sandbox is probably not a good call. So yeah, we're a little bit limited there, but yeah, happy to, if anyone's interested, happy to get them set up for a demo, of course.
That's awesome. I think it's awesome. I think
Yeah.
people should absolutely do it. If you want to, again, go after the large fruit and the low hanging fruit, being the strategy,
Yeah.
recurring giving, but at the same time, you're still optimizing the top of funnel stuff. You've got both options. So I think it's a fantastic thing what you built. Thrilled that you were here today. This was really, really great. Excited for people to go to WeGive.com to check you out.
Yeah, thank you, John. Pleasure. Yeah, really fun conversation. I don't usually get to talk to someone that understands, like you have a pretty deep knowledge of the tech space, obviously, which is very abnormal. And then, you have a really deeper than I understanding on the effectiveness of basically the ethos and pathos and logos of what we're trying to do, right? Which is, that communication piece around making a difference. And that's obviously you built a really great organization that's focused on that. So it's a fun conversation for me. Thank you.
This was a treat. I really appreciate your time. And it's just, again, can't emphasize enough reasons why people give to your organization, right? You're over here, it's talking about creating meaning. We talk about it creating impact, right? Donors want to make a difference. And you're like, yeah, but they also want to feel the meaning associated with that difference. How do we do that? We tell them what we've done with their money and we remind them from stories of transformation. I love the way you said creating meaning at scale, but I really Well, we use the phrase donors are buying impact, and you're saying no, they're trying to buy meaning.
Mm,
They want to feel good about it. I think they're both true. I mean, I think
yeah,
they're absolutely true.
yeah.
And so the more we do the right things, the more we get the outcomes that we want. And it's like, that's the exciting thing with what you've done. You make that really,
Yeah, thank you.
hey,
Super
man,
fun, John. Appreciate you.
this is great, Jonathan. Thanks
Yeah,
so much.
awesome.